morning.
सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
Acharya Vande Guru
गुरुपरम्पराम्
Paramparam.
ॐ सहना
Om
भवतु
Brahmavatu
सहनौ भुनक्तु
Brahmanatu
सह
Sahajiryam
वीर्यङ्करवावहै
Bhavahai
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
Tejasvinavadhitamastु Ma
विद्विषावहैः
Vidvijavahai
ॐ शान्ति
Shanti
शान्ति
Shanti
शान्तिः
Shanti.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning.
So we are on the second chapter, first section, the 13th mantra. So we will chant that out. Please unmute yourself. Angushta Matra Purushaha
Angushthamatrah Purushah
Jyotirva Dhumakaha
Jyotirvadhumakah
Ishano Bhuta Bhavyasya
Ishano Bhutabhavyasya
Sa Evadya Sa Ushvaha
Sa Evadhyasa Ushvah
Tatvaitat.
Etatvaitad.
So again, the same description. Ishanaha, the Lord, Purushaha, the Atma, Angushta Matraha is the size of a thumb. Okay. So Purushaha, Angushta Matraha, that Atma, that Purushaha, Angushta Matraha, which is of the size of a thumb. Angushta Matraha, Ishanaha is indeed Ishvara, the Lord, Bhuta Bhavya Asya, of the past and the future. Bhutaha Asya, of the past, Bhavya Asya, of the future, and we have to supply Vartamana, of the present also. Now, the literal meaning is past, future, and present. But Shankara, in his commentary, he uses the word Nityaha to describe Bhuta Bhavasya. Nityaha, which is, he also adds another adjective, Kutastaha. Kutaha is an anvil. So Kutastaha, as steady as an anvil, eternal and changeless. So why does he talk about Kutastaha here? Why does he include the adjective Kutastaha or Nityaha to describe Bhuta Bhavasya? If you remember our discussions in the past, whenever we talked about Nityam, eternal, we talked about two types of Nityam. Do you remember? What are they?
Atyantika Nityam Apekshika
Atyantika Nityam and
Apekshika.
Apekshika Nityam. So Apekshika Nityam is relative Nityam. And Shankara in his commentary adds Parinami Nityam. So Apekshika means relative. What does relative mean? Parinami. Parinami is that which changes. So there is a changing Nityam. There is a constantly changing eternal thing, Parinami Nityam. And there is a Kuthastham Nityam, the non-changing eternal thing. What do they refer to?
Maya and Brahman.
Maya and Brahman. Why is Maya Parinami? Because it's constantly evolving to the universe and de-evolving back into subjective Maya. Right? So that Maya is constantly changing. And we know why is constantly changing. What is the nature of Maya? Trigunas. Trigunas are never in equilibrium. Therefore, they are constantly changing. Therefore, Maya is Parinami Nityam. And the unchanging substratum of that Maya is Kutastha Nityam. Right. Then, of course, this question by now all of you all know how to answer. If you talk about two Nityams, How do we say we are Advaitins?
One is
They
Mithya.
belong to different orders of reality.
They are different orders of reality. One is Satyam, one is Mithya. There can be no conflict between Mithya and Satyam because orders themselves are different, right? And so he says, Eva Jyotihi Adhumakaha. Like a flame, Jyoti Eva, but Adhumaka, without smoke, and that alone exists, right? You have to add here, Adhya exists today, right? And Saha U Shvaha. What is Shvaha? If you remember Bhagavad Gita, we have discussed this particular word, Shvaha.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Next day.
Tomorrow, next day. Shvaha means next day. Okay. Now, but here, you cannot take the meaning of that Ishvara exists today, Adhya, and Shvaha tomorrow. What meaning do you have to take?
the next Srishti.
Always. Tomorrow means
Always.
what? See, remember
In
one
all
thing.
time frame.
Whenever you say tomorrow, it never really comes.
Yeah.
Right? You understand what I'm saying? So tomorrow is always the future. When that tomorrow becomes today, the tomorrow is still another day away. Therefore, here the idea is to say that Ishvara alone exists in future also. And that Ishvara, etad vaitat, this indeed is that Lord. Now, look at the visualization. We talked about it in the last mantra also. During Upasana, when you meditate upon Paramatma, you often hear the teacher telling you that, you know, visualize a flame, right? Now, Shastra says you visualize the flame, the Jivatma or the Paramatma, because they are the same. You visualize them as a flame in your own heart, right? And the flame is what size? A good flame is the size of your thumb. And that space in your heart is the size of a thumb. Therefore, Angushta Matraha, visualize the Paramatma, the Ishvara, in the space of your heart like a flame. And Adhumakaha, that flame will have no smoke, indicating that it is a bright flame, self revealing. There is no dimness about it. And remember that this Paramatma is also the Jivatma, and that Paramatma is what? All of all the three frames of time, the past, the present, and the future. And that which is present in the past is also present today and is also present in the future. They are not three different Atmas. That Paramatma is Ekatma. And this, what it indicates is the Nityam nature, the immortal nature of the Atma. In fact, when you say immortality of the Atma, remember that it is Swabhavika immortality. It is the very nature of the Atma. And whatever is the nature of the Atma is what is the nature of the Atma. It's always present. Remember that if something has a particular nature, the only thing we can do is to accept it. If you try to change that nature or remove that nature, by very definition, you are trying to do something which is impossible. And therefore, the more you try, the more fruitless that particular activity is, the more miserable you will become. Why am I saying this? Because there are many things about the body which are its nature. What are the six things we talked about as the very nature of the body?
Shadvikara.
Shadvikara.
What are they?
Asti jayati vardate.
Viparinamate,
Parinamate, apekshate, and
Right.
vinashyate.
Okay, so we'll not talk about Asti and Jayate because there we are not struggling. The birth and existence and growth, we don't struggle. But what happens to Viparinimate? when the body begins to deteriorate, the body begins to age, it is the very nature of the body to age. Any attempt at avoiding this, you are bound to fail. With maybe hair dye and good exercise and yoga, asana, you will probably lengthen the nature of the body. You will remain fit for some more time. Ultimately, physical mortality cannot be changed. It's going to be there. And therefore, to think of myself as immortal, when I say I'm immortal, that I cannot be the body, right? You have to accept that the body is physically mortal. What is the problem? Nobody wants to die, right? And therefore, if I have to say that aham nityam, I am immortal, I have to number one, accept that it cannot be the body which is immortal. Because very perception shows me that nobody is immortal, right? And therefore, I have to accept that I am claiming spiritual immortality, immortality of the spirit, immortality as the nature of the Atma. When I say aham nityam, I am saying I am the Atma. So this idea is being conveyed here. And in his bhashyam, in this particular verse, mantra, so Shankara refers to the 20th verse of the first chapter, first section, where Nachiketa says, Nayamastiti chaike. This was a question. What was the question? Does the Jivatma survive after death or not? Is there anything which survives death? Some people say Jivatma survives. Some people say nothing is there. This is what Nachiketas had asked. And Shankara says, Anena iti ayam pakshaha. Through this mantra, this view has been refuted. So this particular view is taken as the refutation of the views of people who say that there is nothing which survives death. Right? And Shankara, of course, being a logician also, he says, of course, Shastra is refuting this view. But logically also, he says, Nyayataha, using logic also, this particular view is not correct. Why? Well, let us, sorry, let us talk about accepting that there is no past karma, there is no past life, and everything is accidental. Then, how do you explain the suffering of a baby? Let's say a 3-month-year-old baby or 2-month-year-old baby which is suffering. That baby has done no karma in this lifetime, which can be bad karma. It is incapable of doing anything at that point of time. So the suffering or the enjoyment that a baby has cannot possibly belong to any karma attributable to this birth. And therefore, past birth, says Shankara, has to be accepted as the locus for the papa punya karma, which is being suffered by the baby. Right? Why baby? Because if you're talking about a grown-up person, adult, you can say, okay, fine, he's done a lot of good things, bad things in this life, and therefore he's suffering. But what about babies? So he says this view can be logically refuted. And this in Sanskrit, this is called akrita abhyagama doshaha. Akrita means not earned. Right? So the defect of abhyagamam, of attributing doshaha, that's a defect of attributing papam to somebody who has not earned it. And how do you attribute it? By not accepting the previous life. Dosa defecting to somebody who has not earned it is a serious. By attributing papam to somebody who has not earned it in this journey. And that particular dosha, defect, the sastric defect, It's called Akrita Abhyagama Dosha. Now, supposing they say, okay, fine, we are not, I'm not accepting the previous Janma theory even now, and this is accidental. All karma is accidental. The fact that the baby is suffering is accidental. If you accept the theory that suffering or pleasure are only accidental, what is the major problem?
Injustice means God is partial.
We are not talking about God at all over here. We are saying we don't accept previous births. And whatever you are experiencing by way of pleasure or pain, it's all plain old accident. Right? So one, of course, as you say that you are saying that God is partial or God is doing random things. If the world is random, then my being good or my being bad, does it have any meaning?
No.
No.
And therefore, where is the incentive to be dharmic? And if
Mm.
so, then you are saying Veda itself is useless. Okay,
It's
so
nasty.
you cannot say that it's accidental karma, accidental suffering. You have to accept a previous life attributable to that person itself. So this is called Kritahanam, right? Kritahanam is another aspect of Akrita Abhyagama Dosha. Akrita Abhyagama Dosha is what? The defect of attributing papam to somebody who has not earned it. And you are doing that by saying that there was no previous Janma, but he still had papam. Like this baby, for example. There is another thing. Supposing that you don't accept that and you say everything is random, then in this life, supposing I do lot of good karma, right? And then I say I don't accept past births, therefore I don't accept future births also. Then what happens to all the good karma which I have done in this birth, or bad karma, whatever, good karma, bad karma, whatever I have done in this birth? If you say I do not have any future births, it's called kritahanam. I am violating the law of karma, right? My karma, kritam, is producing no result at all. Therefore, again, where is the question of having any incentive to avoid bad karma or do good karma? I'm saying everything gets done only in this life. This is what Charvaka said, right? He said, you don't worry about anything but this life. Therefore, he says, Jivatma does not survive. That idea, Shankara says, is logically also not maintainable. So essentially, he is negating the Charvaka Mata. And these ideas, they will create a defect in the moral order of creation, which we know by the name of law of karma. Okay. What about Shanika Vijnanavada, which is the Yogachara Matam of Buddhists? Right? What does the Matam say? That Atma is Shanika. Jivatma lives only for a Shana, for a second. And therefore, this Jivatma is living only for one moment. And the next moment, another Jivatma comes. Therefore, Jivatma is Anitya. This particular idea is also refuted by this particular argument. That Jivatma not surviving is logically not tenable. Because if you say, as an example, in Shanika Matam, in Yogacara Matam, Shanika Vijnanavada, that the Jivatmas are different for each. One Jivatma lives in this second, another Jivatma is born. That means at every instant, different Jivatmas are born. Where is the question of the surviving or the logicality of the law of karma? Law of karma does not function there also. Therefore, Shankara says, Charvaka Matam as well as Yogachara Matam, the Shanika Vijnanavada of the Buddhists, cannot be accepted as true. Very interestingly, from this particular mantra, he has refuted two other darshanas. Okay. Now we will look at mantra number 14. Please unmute yourself. We will chant. Yathodakam durge vrishtham
यथोदकं
यथोदकं
दुर्गे
दुर्गे
वष्टम्
वृष्टम्
parvateshu vidhavati
पर्वतेषु
पर्वतेषु
विधावति
विधावति
evam dharman prathak pasyan
एवं
एवं
धर्मान्
धर्मान्
पृथक् पश्यन्
पश्यन्
evam dharman prathak pasyan
एवं
एवं
धर्मान्
धर्मान् पृथक्
पृथक्
पश्यन्
पश्यन्
anevanu vidhavati.
तानेवान् विधावति
तानेवानुविधावति.
So he says, Dharman Pashyan. So dharma here means jivas. Okay, it's not other dharma. Dharman Pashyan, one who sees jivas prithak, as different from each other, and anuvidhati tan eva, goes after that idea only. Evam yatha, just as udakam, water, vrishtham durge, the water which has fallen on the mountain, rained on the mountain, Vidhavati Parvateshu, runs down the slopes. So he doesn't explain anymore. The person who sees Jivatmas as different is like the water which falls on the slopes of a mountain and falls on the top of a mountain and runs down the slope. Very, thus little mantra. What does it mean?
will be born again.
What happens to water which falls on a mountain?
Never comes.
Disappears.
It runs on the slope and
disappears.
Disappears.
So that is what he's saying. The person who sees different jivas is different from himself, he will also disappear. Disappear means what?
Mortality.
He will go from death to death. That means he will be born again and again. So Yamraj is saying that you should learn to say that I am that Eka Paramatma, that single, non-dual Paramatma, I am. And if my vision is defective and I am seeing or I'm understanding all the different jivas whom I perceive as different from myself, what am I doing? I claim myself as one of these jivas. Right? When you Dharman Pashyan Prathaka, you are seeing many, many jivas. If you are seeing many jivas, obviously you can't be claiming yourself as all of them. And therefore, you're claiming yourself as one of the jivas. Therefore, what is the consequence? Mortality. Whatever is different must be born and must die. Therefore, if I, however, claim myself as the consciousness principle, which is the substratum of all these jivas, then that consciousness principle, that Paramatma, is immortal. Right? And to convey this idea, the example is given. On the mountain, it is raining, right? You have to imagine, very heavy rain is there, water is flowing down the mountain. The rain has now stopped, and there is a lot of water on the top of the mountain. When the water is at the top, if you look up, you can see various streams of water flowing down, right? What is the speciality about these streams of water? If you ever watch, you will find that from the top, when the water starts, or when the stream starts, the stream is thick, right? But as it goes down, it becomes thinner and thinner and thinner. After some time, you will find that all the individual streams have disappeared. This idea is the same. Similarly, with the Jivatma and the Paramatma, if you divide that non-dual Paramatma into Aneka Jivatma, you are as if looking at that one water in different streams. That Jivatma will ultimately perish. So Durgam Vrishtham. Durgam is the mountain, the slope of the mountain. And Vrishtham is rain. So Parvateshu Vidhavati gets divided into several small streaks of water as it flows down. And you have to supply the Vinashyati and finally disappears. In the same way, if we do not assimilate Vedanta and we see consciousness principle as several jivatmas, aneva anuvidhavati. Just like that water gets destroyed, the jivatma will also get destroyed. Okay. Now we come to the last mantra of the first section. We will chant the 15th mantra. Yathodakam shuddhe shuddham.
यथोदकं
शुद्धे
शुद्धं
शुद्धम्
आसिक्तं ताकृदेव भवति
आसिक्तं
आसिक्तं तादृदेव एव भवति
आसिक्तं तादृगेव भवति
आसिक्तं
तं तादृगेव भवति
एवं मुनेर्विजानतः
एवं
मुनेर्विजानतः
आत्मा भवति गौतम
आत्मा भवति गौतम
इति प्रथमा वल्ली
इति प्रथमा वल्ली
Okay. So, Atma Munehe, the Jivatma, who is the Mune, who is the Jnani, who is the wise person, Bhavati. Bhavati becomes what? Bhavati Atma. Munehe, the Jivatma, becomes Atma himself. Evam Yatha, just as Shuddha Udakam. Udakam is water. Shuddha Udakam is pure water. Shuddha Udakam Astikam. Asiktam. Asiktam is which is joined to or which is poured into. Right? Shuddha Udakam Asiktam Shuddhe. When pure water is poured into pure water, what happens?
becomes one.
It becomes
No
one.
difference.
You cannot distinguish the two. Tadgrit eva, in the same manner, Hey Nachiketas, he says, the Jivatma was understood this particular concept that he is not different from the Paramatma. He becomes Paramatma himself. Hey Gautama. Gautama is another name for Nachiketas. So what has been said? Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam. The oneness between the Jivatma and the Paramatma is being mentioned here. So initially the seeker, the sadhaka, he thinks that I am the Jivatma and I have to become the Paramatma. And then he goes through all the various sadhana, karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga, which consists of Shravanam, Maranam, and Nididhyasanam, and discovers that he doesn't have to become the Paramatma. He is already Paramatma. And the example is given here. There are two vessels, or there's one big vessel of pure water, and then there's one tumbler of pure water. When the tumbler of pure water is mixed into the vessel of pure water, you will find that you cannot distinguish later which water belonged to the container and which water belonged to the glass. Similarly, once the Jivatma has merged with the Paramatma, understanding. Merger is intellectual. The intellectual understanding has taken place. Tadreva bhavati. Both will become uniform. You cannot distinguish who is Jivatma and who is Parama. So in this mantra, remember that Gautama is the name of Nachiketas. So with this, the mantra is over, the section is over, but Shankara thinks it is necessary to give some instructions. So in his commentary, he says, Tasmat, therefore. Therefore means wherefore. What would you say Shankara means by therefore? He doesn't say. He just says therefore, Tasmat.
To summarize,
Equal to this understanding of the Aikyam.
Yes. Therefore means since Bheda Darshanam, multiplicity of views leads to samsara and Abheda Darshanam leads to moksha. So Tasmat has to be summarized in that manner. Since Veda Darshanam gives samsara and Abheda Darshanam gives moksha, and Shruti is repeatedly saying the same thing. In all the verses, if you see, this is what is being said. If you are looking at something as different from yourself, that will be samsara. When you see nothing as different from yourself, that will be moksha. And here Shankara says you should, because of this particular point, that any darshanam which gives you the idea that you are different from the others, Veda darshanam, that has to result in samsara. Therefore, he says you should reject all other ideas belonging to any other darshanas. Remember, it is only Vedanta which gives you Abheda darshanam. All others, for example, 5 Astika darshanani. What are they? All these
Charvaka, Jainism, Buddhism, 4
no,
branches.
no. I said Astika
No.
darshanani.
They are Nastic.
Yoga,
No.
Sankhya,
Nyaya, Vaisheshika,
Not
Sankhya, Yoga, Darshana, and
So
Purva
Sankhya,
Mimamsa.
Yoga, Nyaya,
Nyaya,
Vaisheshika,
Vaisheshika,
Purva
Uttar,
Mimamsa.
Purva Mimamsa, Uttar Mimamsa.
Uttar Mimamsa is what we are doing. Is other darshanas. He's talking about darshana which you should reject. So you can't include Uttar Mimamsa in that. No. Can you? You can't. Uttar Mimamsa is Vedanta. Therefore, he says you should reject Kutartika Bheda Drishtim. Kutartika means Tarkika is logic. Kutarkika is false logic. And he says all these darshanas based on inadequate logic, on defective logic, what do they propound? Bheda Drishtim. They talk about this difference in vision, and that will lead only to samsara. So in the first section of his commentary, he says you should reject the darshanas which are Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, and Purva Mimamsa in so far as they talk about differences in vision, Bheda Drishti. Not only that, you should also reject Nastika Kudrishtimcha. So the first one is Astika, this one is Nastika. Nastika includes how many schools?
6.
What are they?
Charvaka, Jaina, and 4 of the Buddhists.
Buddhist.
Hinavana and
By now you should know what those 4 are. Charvaka, Jainism, then
4 Buddhism
which are the 4?
branches.
We have discussed several times.
Tantrika,
Tantrika,
at
Yogachara.
Mahayana there is Yogachara and
Yogachara,
Madhyamika.
Madhyamika, and Vaibhasika. Right?
Vaibhasika.
We discussed that these 4 can be broadly divided into 2, which are called what?
Hinayana.
Hinayana and
Mahayana.
Mahayana.
Mahayana. So you must remember all this. Even though we are not studying them in great detail, of course, Buddhism will study in detail, Jainism will study in detail as in Brahma Sutras. But until that, we have already seen the various features, and we know that they are all propounding dualistic vision only. The difference is in the five Astika Darshanani, dualistic vision is there, but they accept the Vedas. In the five Nastika Darshanani, dualistic vision is there, and they don't accept Veda also. Right? And therefore, he says, since Shruti is our well-wisher, and he uses a very nice word. He says, Matra, Pitra, Sahasrebhyo api. Well-wisher like 1,000 mothers and fathers. And he says, Shruti is superior to all the parents. Why is that so? Parents are definitely our well-wishers. But parents may be confused. And so he says Veda is like the unconfused parent. So you may have a confused parent, but there is Veda, which is never confused. And therefore Veda is superior among the two. And this teaching given by Shruti, Vedena Upadishtham, the teaching given by the Shruti is what? Atmaikatva darshanam. Atma ekatma darshanam. Atma ekatva darshanam. The idea that there is only one Atma and that Atma you are. And very importantly, one small little, line he adds. How should you approach the Veda? Adarniyam Shanta Darpe. Understand? Adarniyam. Approach with respect and Shanta Darpe with a mind which is calm, Shantaha, and Adarpe, free of Dambo, Darpa, etc., etc. What does Darpa mean? Bhagavad Gita. Darpa means arrogance or conceit. Therefore, approach with a mind which is calm and free from that arrogance that I know everything. You have to accept Veda as the mother who is got only your welfare at heart, and that the mother is clear in her vision. So, because she is Veda, and therefore accept whatever Veda says. Once you do that, and this incidentally is a very important part of the study. Unless your mind is receptive to the Veda, you may get knowledge, but that knowledge will not go towards giving you moksha. So with this, we'll stop for today because I don't want to start another section today. Any questions? Okay. So we have some time before the next class. So I will leave you to your own devices for that much time. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Om
Thank you, Ravi ji.
Thank you so
Om.
Thank